song. Hello everybody, my name is Nate the Great, and you are listening to Pro Talk Wrestling live here on Spreaker.com, also on YouTube as well as SoundCloud.com. Guys, it is going to be quite an interesting month. I'll start with Monday, talk about that in a bit. A little bit of a shocker on Tuesday, and I'm going to give you a fantasy booking that involves TNA. It's going to be a very interesting one, so you definitely do not want to miss out on that. But let's just get right into it. Well, actually, before we get too much into it, I just want to say that sorry, guys, for not doing Twitter as much as I should. Thing is, I've just had a lot of things going on, so I haven't really had the chance to, touch base with people on Twitter, being able to talk to them on Twitter, but I will start doing that again this Monday night for Monday Night Raw. Also, it is the 20th anniversary of Pokemon, which, surprisingly enough, so congratulations to Pokemon for turning 20 years this day. I mean, it's crazy. It's gone from having 150 Pokemon to almost 400, 800 Pokemon. It's just one of those things where I'm losing track of how many Pokemon are left. I'd much rather stick to the regular Pokemon that everybody knows and loves. Anyway, so, interestingly enough, I actually entitled this show March Madness because March is going to be a big time month for a lot of us. We got next Sunday will be guest starring Smart Money's Chris Lockman and AJ Jensen. You can follow them at Smart Money at Clock7, I should say, and AJENS81. Also, you can take a look at them on SoundCloud.com/smart-money-podcast, or look at them on Facebook at Facebook.com/smartmoney/. Interesting, I just noticed that last slash at the end. Alright, so let's just go right into talking about Monday Night Raw. It was all about the money, and the money being Shane McMahon. Shane McMahon made his long-anticipated return to the squared circle, and he created quite an impact. He came in, and he announced that he wanted Monday Night Raw. And Vince said, all right, you can have Monday Night Raw, provided that you beat The Undertaker at WrestleMania inside Hell in a Cell. And also, one thing that actually happened during that promo was that Vince McMahon dropped the F-bomb during that. I believe that he was talking to him, and then next thing you hear is a fucking beating. And you just hear the crowd just going, oh. And honestly, I thought that somebody actually edited that in there, but no, that's apparently what Vince McMahon was saying. So apparently they're going a little bit more with an edgier side of Raw and SmackDown going into WrestleMania, which I'm all for. I think it's going to be interesting to see how they do it. They also saw blood for the first time when Triple H beat up on Roman Reigns. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. But main thing to talk about is McMahon making his return, Shane McMahon, of course, and facing The Undertaker at WrestleMania. He's apparently working out, getting ready for the match, and a lot of people have mixed emotions about that. There are more people that think it's positive, more people think that's negative. I am for the idea of having Shane versus The Undertaker. It's been a while since I've actually seen those two inside a wrestling ring. Actually, the last time I think they competed against each other was the King of the Ring in 2000. Yeah, 2000. And a lot of people might say, well, what about Survivor Series 2001? Everybody knows that really wasn't a match for him. That was just him getting beat down. Undertaker, all he did was hit a tombstone, tag in Jericho, Lion Salt 1, 2, 3. He was gone from the matchup. For those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, look up the Invasion storyline, and you will see a horrendous waste of talent. So, there are people that have actually also thought of the idea of having John Cena represent Shane, or even Finn Balor representing Shane. Cena I could see happening because he's the name and face of the company, and supposedly he's going to be coming back. Finn Balor, I like the idea because it is one of those things where it would be kind of a passing of the torch, where Undertaker wouldn't have to go too crazy against Finn. Finn would be easy to work with. Finn would be a lot lighter to work with than say a Big Show or a Brock Lesnar. But I just think that it's just way, way too soon for Finn Balor to go on a main event level stage like that against The Undertaker. But I also mentioned, if they did do it, it would be a great opportunity to bring out the Balor Club. but we're just going to have to wait and see how things go on. I don't know how I would feel about that, but discuss more about that as time progresses. We also saw, first time in a while, we saw blood on Monday Night Raw, where Triple H just beat the living shit out of Roman Reigns and busted his nose, hit him with a pedigree on the steel steps, and he talked about tearing down the walls of the Roman Empire and bringing him to his knees. And I'm looking forward to seeing how this matchup goes. I'm already done with my whole rage deal from Sunday. Like I said, it wasn't that the fact that Roman Reigns won, it was the fact of how it was just presented. It was horrible the way it was presented. So hopefully they do something better with these matches going into WrestleMania. Actually, interestingly enough, Stone Cold Steve Austin actually said that they should actually turn Roman Reigns heel before fans starting to love him. And that's a very interesting point. I think it'd be kind of weird to actually have Triple H be a face and have Roman as a heel going into WrestleMania. But it might be something good. It might be something different. Where Roman Reigns, he doesn't talk so much on the mic. All he does is he just, he either nods, grunts, something like that. Okay, I'm not trying to make him sound like a caveman, but you know what I mean. His promos are not exactly that as good as what they could be. Alright, so that was going to be it for Monday Night Raw. Going to go into TNA. I'm actually going to be doing this only for under like 30 minutes because I figure the whole TNA rebooking is going to probably take a while. So, going from there to TNA a little bit, we had a bit of another shocker, if you want to call it that, a heel turn in the form of Rockstar Spud turning on EC3 in the lockdown match between Matt Hardy and EC3 for the world title. Honestly, I think that was just a dumb business move. I think that if they would have had, Tyrus, done some way to cost them the match, that'd be okay. If they would have had, maybe somebody different, somebody else who could probably use that heel turn, probably would be better off. But I think Rockstar Spud is just one of those guys who's really hard to take seriously as a heel. He's a great babyface. I'm not denying that. He's a very great athlete. But having him as a heel, it's just so ridiculous. I mean, if you don't believe me, go back and watch his heel stuff that he did with Dixie Carter, and before he had a great matchup with EC3 in, I think it was in UK actually. I think it was about a year ago in UK where they actually had a very great matchup. But yeah, I just don't like the idea of Rockstar Spud turning heel and joining Matt Hardy in his deal. And that's another thing, is that Matt Hardy is supposed to be a heel champion, beat all newcomers, everything like that. But he's never pinned EC3. I mean, he won the title in a last man standing match. He retained the title against EC3 in a cage match, but he's never really pinned him. He's never made him submit. So that's going to be one of those things I think is going to keep rolling on until it finally happens, where EC3 either gets pinned or made to submit, which I don't see that happening in the long while. As far as TNA goes, this upcoming week, they have Kurt Angle versus Bobby Roode in the Kurt Angle Farewell Tour, as well as having Drew Galloway versus Mike Bennett, which, again, will be very interesting to say the least. But enough talking about that. Time to go into the TNA rebooking, how I would have done it, because not necessarily a smart ass, but I am that great. So, talking a bit about the one thing that TNA just horribly messed up. And no, I'm not going to be talking about the Hulk Hogan, Eric Bischoff era, because there's no going back to that. The one thing that really kind of stood out to me that really just baffles me was how they booked Magnus as the TNA World Heavyweight Champion. And how did they book him? Horribly. Actually, he probably is going to be the second worst TNA champion of all time, next to Matt Hardy, of course, which, again, I don't think Matt Hardy deserves to be the champion. Anyway, that's for another time. So basically what happened during that time? Well, Magnus, he basically had a great Bound for Glory matchup against Sting, and he went on to become the World Heavyweight Champion with the help of Dixie Carter and the Dixieland Express, whatever you want to call it. He ended Sting's career. He defeated AJ Styles to unify the world titles. He took on Samoa Joe. He defeated Gunner for the world title. And he lost it to Eric Young cleanly And the worst thing about it was that every other matchup involved interference. Great job, TNA. You really made Magnus look like a class act champion. No, he looked so horrible in there. And I think that was just weird having him as a heel. He was just not the kind of guy that I saw really working out for him. But don't worry, I could book it better. So, let's start off with the whole thing that happened in the Hardcore Justice. They had Bully Ray versus Chris Sabin, and we are going to get into Magnus in just a bit. So, Bully Ray and Chris Sabin, who won the world title from Bully Ray at the Destination X pay-per-view, he went on, well, actually it was a free event, sorry. He went on to they went on to have a great rematch inside of a steel cage in which Tito Ortiz and Rampage Jackson both interfered in this matchup. That is no longer the case. Tito Ortiz and Rampage Jackson are not in TNA. We're not going to waste any money on them. They do not need to be there, even if it is to cross-promote for an MMA fight that's coming up. It does not need to happen. So, basically what ends up happening is that it's about to be the end of the matchup. Bully Ray just hit a low blow on Chris Sabin. Mr. Anderson comes out, who has indeed been a member of Aces and Eights. He comes out. He has the hammer. He throws the hammer into the cage, overshoots it, and Chris Sabin catches it. Chris Sabin hits Bully Ray in the head with it, hits maybe a cradle shock or a suplex maneuver. 1, 2, 3, and Chris Sabin is still the world champion. Then we go on to No Surrender, and of course you have the 4 finals for the Bound for Glory series. You have AJ Styles and James Storm, and Magnus versus Gunner. And actually it was Magnus versus Bobby Roode. Yeah, it was Magnus versus Bobby Roode. And that doesn't change. AJ Styles wins the whole thing, and he goes on to Bound for Glory. The main event of the No Surrender pay-per-view is Bully Ray, Mr. Anderson, Kurt Angle, and Chris Sabin. The matchup ends with Kurt Angle hitting the Olympic Slam on Bully Ray. Chris Sabin hits a chop block on Angle as he's hitting the slam, covers Bully Ray. 1, 2, 3. Chris Sabin is going to Bound for Glory. And this is one of the things that I wanted to change, because when they put in Bully Ray versus AJ Styles, Bully was a great heel, but at the same time he just wasn't one of those guys I think people really got behind. So if you have Chris Sabin versus AJ Styles as the main event, I think that's going to draw a lot more money, and that's going to be 2 TNA originals, going out there and tearing the house down in a huge TNA way. So Bound for Glory card will actually look more like Chris Sabin versus AJ Styles. We will have Sting against Bobby Roode in a rematch there, because we want to keep Bound for Glory looking a little more different. Don't have it be something repetitive. You have Mr. Anderson versus Bully Ray in a last man standing match, which, disbands Aces and Eights completely. And then we also have Magnus versus Kurt Angle. The build-up to this is interesting, because Magnus is thinking that he's done everything that he's could. He's been on a bit of a losing streak, and he said, you know what, I just don't think I have it in me anymore. I think it's just time for me to just go home. And that's where Kurt Angle stops him, and he says, what are you talking about? You are the future of this company. We picked you for a reason. We picked you to be in the Mafia because we believed in you. You really want to prove yourself against me at Bound for Glory. So the match is set. It's Kurt Angle versus Magnus at Bound for Glory, and this matchup is just a knockdown drag about, just a